r/AskReddit. Serious, overnight hikers, hunters and outdoors people of Reddit, what creepy things have you experienced in the forest? Breathing, just heavy breathing right outside my tent loud enough to wake me up. Not like fat guy going up the stairs breathing. Very large intense clear breathing. Middle of the night, no animal sounds, no grunting, no footsteps, just breathing from something large. I loaded my shotgun and pointed it in the direction it was coming from and waited for what seemed like a lifetime, probably 2 to 3 minutes, until it just stopped. I did not sleep the rest of the night and I didn't go out until the morning. No signs of any animals or people in my camp, no footprints, nothing disturbed. Still to this day I don't know what it was. As an experienced hunter who has chased away bears from my camp, I have never been so scared. Hiking alone in Washington. Late fall, so it's cold and few people on the trail. I'm halfway up a steep switchbacked climb and laying down to take a break when 2 guys come along descending the trail. I wave and they wave back. As they get close, one of them suddenly says, "Oh, you're alone," and then smiles at his friend. I get a little freaked out, and I guess my dog sensed it because she stood up and stared sternly at them. She's an 80 pounds black lab and full of love, but can look very intimidating. The guys saw her and completely changed and quickly hurried on their way. I'm not sure if they were gonna do something creepy, but I picked a much less obvious campsite that night. My boyfriend and I were camping in Petalawi Provincial Park, this past summer. On the last night of our stay, as I'm falling asleep, my BF tells me I've been pushing him off his side of the air mattress. I was trying to steal heat from him, as he's a human furnace, and asks me to give him room. Sounds good. We go to sleep. I wake up to him shoving me and think I'm crowding him by accident, so I move over a little. He shoves me harder, and I'm annoyed now because I already moved and I'm tired, so I somewhat loudly say I'm moving. And he grabs me and shushes me. I know something is wrong and I'm awake right away. He whispers very softly, "Do you hear something?" And right away I hear the unmistakable exhaling huff of a bear right by my head. My heart is pounding because at this point I can hear it sniffing us and huffing, which is not good if you know grizzlies. My BF says we need to get to our truck and I agree, but from what I can hear, the bear is between our tent and truck. Luckily we have command start, and our truck has a very aggressive start, so when my BF started the truck, I heard some crashing through the trees and we both ran to the truck. We drove a lap around our campground to make sure the bear hadn't gone into anyone else's sight, but didn't see it. We slept in the truck until it was light out and let the wildlife hotline in the area know before we left. We started second guessing ourselves because this all happened at about 1:30 AM. But when we were packing up the tent that next day, we found coarse, brown hair all over the side of the tent, where our heads were, and on the grill of the truck. I've never been so terrified and full of adrenaline in my life. Backpacking in the woods with a group. I'm a bit of an insomniac, so I was up far after everyone else. We wanted to pack as light as possible, and it was summer, so we just had a tarp on the ground and put our sleeping bags on top of it. So we are completely out in the open. It was after midnight, and I was still tossing and turning. Then I hear footsteps. I had heard a deer/coyote or something else with 4 legs running through the brush earlier, but this was definitely bipedal. Whoever it was came right to the edge of the clearing, about 15 feet from us. I could just barely make out a shadow of the figure, but it was pitched black out and hard to tell what it looked like. It looked like it was swaying side to side or looking around the clearing. Then it turned and rushed into the woods, and I heard the running footsteps. Once they faded into the distance, I finally felt like I could breathe. I was considering waking someone up. Then I heard the most blood-curdling scream from the direction the thing went. I shook my friend awake, who was more experienced and familiar with the area. All he said was, "Dude, it's just a fox, go back to sleep." I told him I heard the footsteps and saw it, and it was not a fox, but he just dismissed it completely and insisted I go back to sleep. I sat there for what felt like forever, feeling paranoid and scared, until I just gave up and took an extra dose of my sleep meds because I figured the anticipation was worse than being killed in my sleep. Not exactly hiker/hunter/etc, but I was walking back to my parents' country house a bunch of years ago. It was this time of the year, so it got dark pretty soon. I was around 16 years old and coming back from meeting friends 1 kilometer remaining of walk. On the other side of the road I saw a lantern. Couldn't see any details of the person however. Seconds later, he or she aims at me with the light for what I felt so long. Then it gets turned off and disappears in the darkness. I don't think I have ran faster in my life. I was spending 3 days kayaking on the Koran. I was having a great time and really enjoying the serenity and listening to the native birds and just appreciating nature. On the first day I heard what I could have sworn was a human, not screaming, screeching I guess. I didn't think much of it and kept paddling. I saw what looked like a body close to the shore and found a seal that had just been eviscerated. Honestly, this thing was spread all over the beach. No footprints of any kind, just a seal in 100 pieces. After the screeching and the seal I was a little creeped out but just continued my trip. Nothing of event really happened that night, except that I kept hearing splashes from the water in front of me, yet when I checked there was nothing there. The next day I went out again with the same plan. Just paddle until I got tired and then set up camp and go to bed. Unfortunately for me, I got stuck on mud bog and had to spend a solid hour dragging my kayak across this thing to get to the other side of the water, where I saw a deeper channel and a bunch of sand dunes. After what feels like maybe 40 minutes of struggling with my kayak and this bog, I saw a figure atop one of the sand dunes. Logically it was probably a random tourist like me, or maybe a kangaroo. I stared at it for a second before getting back to trying to cross this bog. When I looked back it was gone. Weird. Anyway, I set up camp for my last night. I was a bit creeped out by the seal and the noises and now this figure, so I made sure I had my knife with me. I set up my tent a bit away from the water in an open area, so I could see everything around me. As I was eating dinner I couldn't help but feel I was being watched, as it was a total fire ban in the area. I didn't have a fire, so I couldn't see much. I chalked it up to nerves and went for a short walk to explore the area I was in and wandered down to the beach. Now for some context, the beach nearby is loud. You can't hear much other than crashing waves, which makes what happened next especially eerie. I heard that screeching again and looked back to where I came from. Again a figure was standing in right by the path where I walked to the beach. F that, I thought. I pulled my knife out and approached where I thought I saw this thing. There was just a week-old fish that looked like it had been hung on the fence and forgotten. As I walked back down the path I heard what sounded like a kangaroo or wallaby just lightly hopping behind me, but when I looked back there was nothing there. Honestly, I just climbed into my tent and prayed to God there was nothing around. It's kind of anticlimactic, but nothing else really happened. I think I heard that screeching once more and then I didn't hear it again. Apparently there are a few indigenous graveyards in the area. I'm not one for superstition, but if I'm being honest, this experience really spooked me. This memory is over 20 years old and super foggy because I was super little, but here goes. We used to camp at this same spot every year until we moved. Anyway, this one summer I remember when we were first pitching our tent, the nearest campers came over to say hello and pass on some advice that had been spreading across the campground. Something about bears and how everyone should haul their food up in the trees or something. I remember the guy offering my dad some spare rope if he needed any. All seemed fine and dandy. Mom wasn't see, but dad assured her a bear wouldn't come into a campground this busy. On night 2 or 3, everyone was woken to a crash and the sounds of a car alarm. I remember pressing my hand over my sister's mouth because I was afraid that if she cried the bear would come over or something silly like that. There was some distant shouting and my dad decided to investigate. So he grabbed the tiny little skillet and his equally disguised, but in the opposite proportions, flashlight and exited the tent. I remember rolling over because there was this little tear I discovered the last time it rained. There were a lot of flashlights and people over by the bathroom where a car's lights were flashing. It wasn't a bear that had been breaking into people's cars and stealing stuff all summer. It was a crazy homeless guy who'd been hiding out in the woods. They were actually pretty sure he was the same guy who tried to attack 2 teenage girls at one of the nearby hiking trails a few weeks prior, leading to it being closed for the time being. was hiking along the north shore of Lake Superior in Minnesota. If you've never been, it's really thick old growth forest. There's a 360-mile hiking trail from Duluth to the Canadian border, really well developed campsites and enough traffic that I wouldn't feel unsafe on it anywhere. For this particular trip, my hiking buddy and I, wanted to turn it into a loop instead of an out and back on the same trail. Scoped out a section that's connected with some back roads and a snowmobile trail that would work as our loop. As we're hiking on one of the dirt back roads, see a random dirt biker approach us, stop maybe 100 yards back, and stare for a while. Kinda unnerving with him just staring at us for a while, but he eventually turned and left. We eventually get to a log shelter on the snowmobile trail that we planned as campsite 1. Nice relaxing campsite. Go to bed. Woke up in the middle of the night, full moon, and I swore there were 2 moonlit silhouettes standing on either side of my tent. Not sure if I dreamed it or it was real, but freaky as F. Remember just staying as still/silent as possible for as long as possible. Thank you for watching. Like the video and leave a comment if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel, follow on Twitter, and join the Discord and subreddit so you never miss a new video.